Well, boys and girls, really good to see you from myself and from Charlie. Say hello, Charlie. You can't say it out loud, I know, but you'd like to say hello to the boys and girls, couldn't you? Yes, yes, indeed. So you'll see from the scene at the back, it says horrible Christmas. Are you looking forward to Christmas, Charlie? Yes, absolutely you are. Yeah, I know it's a bit rude to ask whether I've got your present yet, but yes, I have. I'll show you later. Yes, and I'm sure the boys and girls are really can't wait for Christmas, but that's not for today. We're not here for Christmas, are we? Do you think you're here for Christmas? Do you, Charlie? Yes, Charlie, you cannot wait for Christmas. Are you the same? Are you waiting for Christmas, but you think you wish it would come? Yes, Charlie, I know you've made a list of all the things that you want for Christmas. And what's the most important thing? A banana. Well, I might have known. Okay, so we're going to be thinking about something else today. I wonder if you can say what it is. I wonder if you can think what it might be. I've got some things that I'm going to show you in a moment to give you a clue. Yes, Charlie, I promise we'll remember it's Christmas. So here we are. We've got some lovely things to have a look at. And I wonder if the boys and girls can see what today's assembly is all about. Yes, I know you really would love to be about Christmas, but can you see the things, boys and girls? I wonder what things you recognize. Do you recognize this here? Yeah, it's a set of candles. You're quite right, Charlie. But do you know what they're for? Do you think the boys and girls know what they're for? Well, let's ask. Do you know what they are, boys and girls? These are Advent candles. And this is the first week of Advent. And so what we'll do is we'll light a candle. You have to be very careful. Don't do it at home unless your mum and dad are there. Yeah. But we light a candle and we remember that Jesus was the light of the world and he's come into our world. What else have we got? Yes, we do need to think about Christmas presents. I know, Charlie, but what about Advent? Well, we've got some things to remind us. We've got an Advent wreath. Yeah, okay, boys and girls, an Advent wreath. And that reminds us of a time of waiting. And we've got some sheep. And you've got some friends that are sheep, I know, Charlie. Yeah, and they don't like bananas, do they? No, no. They like grass, don't they? Yes, yeah. So maybe their Christmas present might be grass. But what about what they say to us? The sheep were waiting on the hills, weren't they? Yeah, they were waiting, and the angels came along. We'll hear about them in a story in a minute or two. And we've got something else. We have, yes, I know, it's leading up to Christmas. And here we are, boys and girls, we have, can you see that? I'll put that a little bit closer. It is an Advent calendar. You like Advent calendars, don't you, Charlie? Yeah, I know. And we've had, on our first day, we've got, what's that? What's that? Can you see? Yeah, I don't think the boys and girls will be able to see. It's a crown. Crown, I wonder what that could be. We'll have to think about it. And that was for the first day. And then we've got, what have we got there for the second day? Can you see, Charlie? Tell the boys and girls. Yeah, it's a gingerbread. Well, you can see that the whole story, I'll bring it over and put it closer to the camera, is the story of the wise men. And they brought gifts, didn't they? Yes, and you love Christmas gifts. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to watch a story that's all about Christmas. But it's a bit different to some of the ones you might remember. It's all about the Grouch who tried to steal Christmas. Yeah, yes, the Grouch that tried to steal Christmas, Charlie. Well, I know you wouldn't be very pleased about that. Now, boys and girls, you watch and see what you think.
I'd like to tell you a story about the grouch that stole Christmas. This story took place 2,000 years ago. The grouch's name was Herod. He'd never liked his name. He'd been teased, tortured and tormented about it at school. When the kids found out his middle name, things got even worse. Because Herod's middle name wasn't actually a bloke name at all. In a moment of madness, Herod's mum had middle-named her baby son, Marigold. With a name like that, it's no surprise that Herod turned out to be as frightening, ferocious and foul-tempered an old oaf as you could possibly imagine, even in your most terrifying nightmare. Perhaps as a way of putting his shameful school days behind him, or perhaps for deeper-rooted psychological reasons that only a psychiatrist could get excited about, Herod had decided that he wanted to rule the world. Herod's maniacal dreams of world domination made him an extremely dastardly fellow. To make matters worse, Herod was not just a grouch with grandiose ideas, but also a rather powerful man, with some rather powerful henchmen. Now, before I go any further, I should mention that Herod didn't actually succeed in stealing Christmas. And that's why this story is called The Great Escape, and not The Christmas That Never Happened. But don't let me get sidetracked. Herod's obsession with power meant that he often did things that normal people, like you and me, might think were strange. For a start off, he surrounded himself with a bunch of silvery-tongued sponges who flattered and fawned until his ambitions grew to disgusting proportions. And then, of course, there were his awfully bad habits. One was biting his toenails. Another was scratching in public places that really oughtn't to be scratched at all. But perhaps his worst habit was taking advice from a sly and slippery sorcerer. This sorcerer had some rather bad habits of his own. Firstly, he was a compulsive liar. Secondly, he was a confidence trickster. Thirdly, he didn't believe in the glorious God that we know rules the world. Little by little, the sorcerer wheedled his way into Herod's confidences. Soon, he was helping Herod to rule the kingdom. He didn't even have proper magical powers. He was just a clever old fraud with a formidable network of informers. One night, after sham spectacles and fake hocus-pocus, the so-called sorcerer came to Herod all aflutter. Whilst gazing into his magic mirror, he had foreseen the coming of a new king. Now, between you and me, that's just a huge, steaming pile of baloney. There's only one being powerful enough to hold the future in the palm of his hand, and that, of course, is God. Truth is, the sorcerer had begun to hear strange rumours about the fulfilment of ancient prophecies. He was determined to exploit Herod's gullible nature. According to the rumours, a virgin had been visited by an angel. The angel told her she'd give birth to the Son of God. Of course, some people scoffed at the gossip. The more cynical even muttered that it was an elaborate excuse to get a promiscuous teenager out of trouble. But many were beginning to wonder, especially when further stories began to circulate. Travellers on the Bethlehem highway had passed a young man with a pregnant woman. Others told tales of an inn so crowded that one would-be guest gave birth in the stable. Then, a bunch of scruffy shepherds crawled out of the woodwork. Their claims were bordering on the bizarre. They said they'd worshipped a baby boy who was from the royal line of David. They'd found him sleeping in a manger. Finally, few people could deny hearing angels' songs. Celestial cantatas so ethereally beautiful they made you weep with joy. But still, some refused to accept it as a sign from God. Unfortunately, whilst the streets were seething with speculation, Herod himself was tucked away in his palace. Like most oppressive tyrants, he was totally out of touch with the common man. He knew nothing of the stories being told and retold, so he sucked up every syllable the sneaky sorcerer uttered. One day, the sorcerer ushered 3 wise men into the palace. Herod had just gotten out of the wrong side of bed. He was always grouchy before he ate his breakfast, but his foul temper worsened when he heard the stranger's words. The wise men believed a dazzling star was leading them to a baby, and that this baby was destined to become the ruler of the world. The strangers had confirmed Herod's worst fears. He was about to lose his throne to a rival king. Egged on by the scheming sorcerer, Herod began plotting ways to find and kill the baby. And that's why this story is about the grouch that tried to steal Christmas. I mean, you've got to realise what a massively stupid idea Herod had hit on. There's no way you'd find me pitting myself against the armies of heaven. But Herod, being both a megalomaniac and a chump, gave little thought to the divine power he was up against. And for a while, it seemed like Herod's evil plan might actually, well, work. The wise men dutifully followed the star to the little town of Bethlehem. Herod's henchmen dutifully tracked the wise men and then dutifully reported their findings to Herod. First, they sighted Target 1, a young man aged between 25 and 30. Then they sighted Target 2, a young woman, long dark hair and dressed in blue. And of course, Target 3, a newborn baby boy wrapped in swaddling clothes. With the targets located, all that remained was to execute Herod's order to kill. And that's when a mysterious darkness descended upon Herod's hired heavies. A darkness so thick it clouded their brains, blinded their eyes, and muffled their ears. They couldn't tell that time was flying by, and that the wise men had long since disappeared into the night. Nor could they see a light-bathed angel approaching the sleeping father, or hear the newly wakened mother overwhelmed by a situation too big to cope with, and pouring out her fears and troubles and burdens to God. So bewildered were the spies, they didn't even realize their mission was about to fail. The father was saddling up the donkey, the family was setting off. A great escape was taking place. It was happening right under the noses of Herod's henchmen, and it was all part of the most incredible plan. God was saving the baby so that the baby could grow up to become the saviour of mankind. When Herod's hired heavies returned and told him that the baby king could not be found, Herod did just what you'd expect of an addle-brained despot. He threw himself onto the floor, kicking and screaming in a fury. I'll leave you to imagine the angry slamming of doors, the smashing of priceless antiques, and the bashing of helpless servants. Oh, and of course, the brutal massacre of baby boys in Bethlehem. And I'll leave it to you to decide on the fate of the faux magician. Shame on him for plotting and conniving and generally exploiting Herod's weaknesses. But what of Herod himself? Well, as befits someone who tried to steal Christmas, his days were numbered. A few years after the family fled to Egypt, Herod died a ghastly and gruesome death. Of course, it would be unchristian of us to take any pleasure in that. The Great Escape was all part of God's perfect plan. Just as God saved Christmas by leading the family to safety, so too we can be confident that we have the might of heaven on our side. And just as Jesus escaped an early death, so too his later death on the cross provided us with the greatest escape of all, salvation from our sin.
Right. Well, that was exciting, wasn't it, boys and girls? Did you enjoy that? Yes, Charlie, you're really pleased that the Grouch didn't manage to steal Christmas, didn't you? Because Charlie would like his Christmas presents. So I hope that you enjoyed the story, boys and girls. I wonder what bit you thought was the best. Was it all the way, all the walk through the desert and on the back of a donkey, while Mary was expecting her baby? Was it when all the angels came? Yeah, you liked that bit, didn't you? I know that, Charlie. All the angels came and sang a great song. Or the shepherds came, and they were the first that were there, and they brought their sheep, your friends. Was it when the three wise men came? Or was it just when Jesus managed to outwit, or rather, God managed to outwit all the troops that came from Herod. Well, I don't know which bit you like best, but I know which bit Charlie likes best. He would love to have his present. Well, we'll get you a present later, but just for you today, Charlie, here is your banana, and I know you like that. So bye for now, boys and girls. We'll see you again soon. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye for now. Bye. Bye, Charlie. Bye.